Hey guys, we're back for another edition of Armchair GMs brought to you by Josh Ball Trades Podcast. I'm one of the hosts of the show, Bugman J.
And I'm Matt. Oh, wait. That's Bugman J over there.
You got it, you got it. All right.
I'll get it eventually.
And this is Armchair GMs, guys. Let's get started, man. This is episode, I think, 23 of our.
That sounds about right.
Sounds about right. That's that magic number. That's the
Nope.
the goats. But okay, I'm gonna jump right into it. We had a good Saturday game of college football. I don't know how big a college fan you are. I should know this by now, Matt. But enlighten me. If you have a college team, who's your college team?
So I follow two teams faithfully. Being born in Florida, it's kind of like I have to follow Florida football.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Although recently I've become more inclined to follow Michigan football, which they put a stomping. Yeah. So those are the two teams that I follow. How about you, Jay? What teams do you follow most? Probably Georgia, I assume.
Yeah, I'm ride or die Georgia fan. I used to follow Georgia and Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech's kind of hard to want to be a part of that organization as a fan. So, well, it's just in my opinion anyway. But yeah, Georgia all the way. It's really all Georgia sports in general. I support my team. You know what I mean? I support my state, even though I probably shouldn't. But that's on a whole nother topic. But anyway, what's your biggest takeaway from week two?
So my biggest takeaway right now is which we talked about it a few minutes ago. None of really the top seven running backs really did anything this week.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a little disappointing. Aside from Nick Chubb, he ripped off 3 touchdowns. I think 87 yards rushing. So
I kind of saved him. The touchdowns kind of saved him a little bit. Actually, the last touchdown kind of started the what's eventual loss, comeback and loss, which is one of the I think 3 or maybe 4 comeback games.
I was going to say there were a lot of them this year, or not this year, this past week.
Yes.
You had Baltimore come back late, which that game, like, I don't know how much of that game you caught. I only caught the tail end because I had just got off work.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I was on the edge of my seat up until, like, I could watch some of the later games, and I'm just like, oh, my God, Tua came to play.
Yeah.
6 touchdowns. He's only projected for 17 points, and he ripped off double that. So yeah, it's
we're
insane.
definitely going to touch on that. I'm definitely going to touch on, really probably that whole game. If in a vacuum, I wish I could really just dissect that whole game because it was really a game of offense and no defense. Or being that the defense, particularly for Miami, stood up for once and allowed their team to probably, if one of the biggest comebacks in NFL history. The Falcons
Easily.
also had a chance for one of the biggest comebacks to they were down 28-3 to try to at half to try to come back and win a game and almost do it, but it was just you could see the ineffectiveness in a new offense. And then you could see also in the same game the potential of the team as a whole and what direction they're going in. So you can be a little bit drawn aback by the 0-2 start, but you can also be inspired by a lot of what you've seen about a lot of these teams that change coaches and the philosophy changes and things just start to click. There's a lot of teams like that this year. Jacksonville is turning over a new leaf, leaving the old Urban Meyer era behind them. You see Miami being a strong number 2 in the AFC East right now, producing what we will talk about later on, a lot of star caliber starters from their team. A lot of players that seemingly were overlooked in the beginning, not named Tyreek Hill, and a lot of emerging stars coming up, a lot of second year players showing potential, elevating their game, veterans bringing that team together. You can see a lot also from Baltimore, what they need in offense, but also being able to utilize what they have to put up all those points, 38 points, to be able to put
I
up
was gonna
that
say,
many. Go ahead.
like you said, the Miami Baltimore game, it was like all offense, hardly any defense,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I like seeing games like that. I like seeing games where there's like a lot of scoring, but on the back end, I do like seeing a lot of like defensive matchups as well. That like
Yeah,
those games I find the most enjoyable. Now, when
definitely.
a team's getting completely blown out, then it's just like, okay,
No help. No help. And just before we really get into things, from a fantasy perspective, how do you see the Jacksonville Jaguars offense? Because I can clearly take my lumps and say that I was not inspired or went broke or had any kind of hype going towards Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk and that whole team in general. I honestly thought that the team would continue to be a stale commodity in the offense. I mean, in the NFL, if that is even a thing. But what is your take on this offense after seeing the first two games? The first one being against the Commanders, and then the second one being against the Colts.
I'll admit I also underestimated like what they would be able to do this year. Um, but no, I like what I'm seeing. I'm not saying Christian Kirk was worth the money that they paid, but I am saying he's working hard for that money right now,
Mm-hmm.
and it really shows in fantasy values right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Trevor Lawrence, granted, he's still got a long way to go before he develops into I'll just say a top 20, top 15 quarterback in the league. But he's showing some promise there. So it'll be interesting to see where he stands, in the middle of the season, middle to latter part of the season. So I'm I'm excited to see what happens with that organization. I'm excited to see where the players develop and where they stand, going
Definitely.
forward.
Do you think Christian Kirk is worthy of a start in your lineup in a 12-team league?
I think so. If I had him, especially after this past week, I would consider throwing him in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, especially if I'm in a position like I am now, where I have Mike Evans, who's suspended for one game.
Yes.
I'm definitely giving the nod to Christian Kirk. I'm also giving a nod to a bunch of players, like another wide receiver that kind of showed up this week, Drake London.
Mm-hmm.
I regret having him on my bench this past week. There went 20 points. That's just sitting. So,
Yeah.
but no, I think for me, Christian Kirk, um, he's one I would definitely consider throwing in the rotation or in my personal rotation. On a week to week basis now, and
Okay.
especially in a 12, maybe a 10-man team league. So
Okay. Well, I see him as having a healthy wide receiver too. Maybe low end to high end number two, maybe potentially a low end number one. I still have my reservations because it's like I said, it's only been two games in the competition. May or may not stack up at the beginning of the season, but they're going to have a few bumps down the road, and I really want to see how the utilage continues to divvy out between the wide receivers if anybody else steps up or if Christian Kirk regresses. But nonetheless, you know what time it is, Matt. It
time for the
is
match.
time for those ads, and we're going to get. I'm on ad duty tonight. Take the helm, see if I can keep this going. All right. Oops. Sorry, guys. Let me roll that back. Roll that beautiful beam footage back. Start from the top. All right. Fresh Cuts. Fresh Cuts is a local barber shop in Marion, Indiana. Contact Caleb Kemper for an appointment time through his website at www.freshcutsbarbershop.com. We are also supporting him as he runs for Best Barbershop of Grant County. Please take the time to vote for him. Voting is from September 28th through October 8th, and it can be done through the Grant County's greatest website. Because Fresh Cuts is not just a barbershop, it's an experience. Let's hope to see him voted the top barbershop in Grant County. All right, our next ad is from Steve Illustrations. He is here for all your art needs from Star Wars to G.I. Joe and beyond. See him for all the nerds in your life who you just don't know what to get for them. All right, we've had this conversation before. We ain't got to go through it again. Just check him out. He'll get you exactly what you need. All right, our next ad, we are supporting our friend Ronnie Morrell as he runs for mayor in Marion, Indiana. He has done a lot of good things in the community and for the community, and we wanted to recognize our appreciation for him by backing him for mayor. Check out his Facebook page to follow along. All right, the Liberty Prep Freedmen are a local post-grad prep football program. We are showing our support for the team and head coach Paul Funches as they begin the season coming off a NPGAA National Championship and are trying for a second. You can find them playing home games at Dick Luton Stadium in Marion, Indiana. All right, we wish them luck as they go through trying to repeat on a championship. All right. Well, we in Georgia know a little bit about that, Matt. I'm just saying. Uh, our friends, our friends from Afro Latinos are changing things up. Check out the Culture Corner podcast featuring Abin and Jalen and hear from them soon as they are still under construction. All right. Rules of the Frame is another friendcast specializing in movie reviews of pretty much anything there is. Connor will soon be a guest on our podcast, Smash Popcorn, and we look forward to collaborating with them. All right, last but definitely not least, Thousand Wives of Weird is just that, weird. From reviews of weird movies to criticizing bad movie choices, Brad H. and Billy Martell will keep you entertained and laughing for hours on end. Check out them exclusively on Spotify. All right. And there we go. All right.
Spot on, sir.
Thank you. All right. Now, let us start at the top. All right. So, we're going to get into a little bit of news and notes. Let's see what we have here. Now,
I was going to say, we're going to start plenty of news to go around this week, especially injuries. I'm sure we'll touch on that here soon, but let's get started with you, Jay.
All right. James Conner of Indianapolis. I'm just trying to run through this pretty quickly. Stop me if anything is of precedence and needs to be noted. James Conner's ankle injury is considered to be not considered to be long-term or serious. NFL Network insider reports per source, Conner sustained an injury during Sunday's win and over the Raiders and did not return. Now, we know that ankle injuries to running backs can be an issue, especially when we have running backs of this caliber that take a bulk of the rushing duties. I don't know how much you saw of the game after he went out Sunday, but the two backup running backs really did not give me any kind of inkling of, they didn't really separate each other. They got almost exactly the amount of carries, and they also got almost the same amount of snaps, receptions, targets. So there was nothing, and they really didn't do anything with it. The offense really kind of looked a little stagnant to me, but I regress. Where do you move James Conner in your running back rankings for week 3 based on the injury? If so, how far?
Me personally, I would move him down like a couple spots. Like I can tell you right, like I have him on one of my fantasy teams, and I'm kind of anticipating not starting him right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I mean it is an ankle injury. I'm sure Arizona is going to be precautious. It's going to be week 3. It's going to be a long season. You might as well try to keep your players healthy if you can for as long as they can. So I personally, I'm looking to, start someone else over James Conner.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone else that has, Arizona players, particularly for the passing game, I see them kind of, I see them going over their projected points this week. I forget who they're actually playing or in week 3. Who is Arizona playing? Because I don't like obviously that'll depend on how much they pass the ball this upcoming week. So
Mm-hmm.
they're playing the Rams, which the Rams they've been kind of hit and
Suspect
miss.
in the secondary.
Yeah, so I would look for Zach Ertz to have a big game. I would look for
If he
Rondell
plays.
Moore. Yeah, if he plays, I look for Rondell Moore to maybe have a couple catches, maybe get some have some playing opportunity there. So, but we'll wait and see. Um, but I don't know. I'm not convinced with Connor. So I tail into that, and I'm just like, I agree with you, Jay. I mean, their offense just looks a little stagnant after he left the game, and it's just like, ugh. Kyler Murray has to run more than usual.
Okay. All right. And we'll move on. As for the 49ers, who are all already down, Elijah Mitchell, they now have lost their starting quarterback, Trey Lance, for the season with an ankle injury. Um, that's a very significant blow because, as many may know, prior to the NFL, he only had 1 full year quarterback experience to begin with, and then having to sit behind and kind of be pushed and pulled a little bit in and out of the starting lineup and replace Jimmy Garoppolo, and having Jimmy Garoppolo basically take them, to the playoffs, and him re-signing, taking a reduced deal and playing behind him. There was always the sense that maybe, if things don't work out for Trey Lance, we have Jimmy Garoppolo in the wings. Things don't happen. Obviously, misfortune has been bestowed upon him. He's no longer going to be able to play this year. So I took a big hit on that. I lost 2 leagues because he was not playing, and I could have played Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields, and even with Justin Fields' mediocre performance, still won my league for that week. So where does this put Jimmy Garoppolo? Is he in your top 25, top 30 quarterbacks moving forward?
I would say top 25, honestly. Listen, Jimmy Jimmy is one of those guys who somehow like he gets that team to the playoffs. And honestly, I feel like he's going to be playing with a lot more, like definitely play with the chip on his shoulder going
Mm-hmm.
here on out. It's like, all right, you guys wanted to start Trey Lance. Well, I'm here. I'm going to show you why I should have been starter, from day one of this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of excited to see where it goes. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 5 quarterback. Not near, no. I wouldn't even put him in top 10, but I think he's going to I think he's going to do a lot of things with that offense and kind of, show that whole organization like, hey, you guys may have messed up here because I think that contract that he signed to take less money, I think it's only for 1 year, if I'm not mistaken. So he might just do what he can. This be Jimmy's last ride with the 49ers and look to go elsewhere.
Okay. So do you move Debo Samuels up or down in your rankings?
I would say right about the same, if not a little bit more. I think he's going to have a lot more utilization. I know that the 49ers are real hesitant about using him in the running back position, considering that clause in the contract.
Yeah.
But they might just say, you know what? Here's an advancement on playing running back for us. Go do your thing.
Okay.
So the 49ers are kind of interesting right now. Like, you have Trey Lance go out. You had Elijah Mitchell go out. You've yet to see George Kittle.
Mm-hmm.
So someone's got to do something, and it might as well be Debo Samuel.
But it just doesn't end. The injuries just don't end with Trey Lance. As we move forward a little bit, Ty Davis Pierce, the rookie, he's also injured, high ankle sprain. He's ruled out for a few weeks. The backup tight end, Tyler Croft, is going to be out a few weeks with the MCL sprain. He was the one stepping in for George Kittle. So their offense is becoming more and more depleted, and we don't know exactly how this is going to turn out for them with, how are they going to monitor who's their backup now? Raheem Mostert. He's injury prone as it is, so they're probably going to have to bring someone else into the mix to try to kind of compensate for that. But then you also have to compensate for the fact that you're losing at tight end, which is also assists in blocking the pass game, opening up the middle of the field. I'm kind of fearful that this offense will become more one dimensional, centered maybe one star, because much as we want to ring the bells for Brandon Ayuk, I still think he's trying to figure it out. And the only proven talent is another injury-prone player in Debo Samuel. So I'm kind of hesitant on this team. It looks kind of dicey, but if the injury bug stops plaguing this team, you could actually see this team recover and possibly go deep, get a deep run. But there's a lot of things that have to fall in place. Okay.
The 49ers right now are making me think of the Baltimore Ravens last year, where it's just like injury after injury after injury after injury. And, the 49ers are going through that right now. And it's an unfortunate thing because I know I was excited to watch Trey Lance. I mean, granted, he didn't really do a whole lot, last week. And he went out real early, this, week 2. So it's an unfortunate thing. And I was excited to see George Kittle back on the field, possibly do some things. And it's just gone in an instant. So
yeah, so the connection never really gets established.
no.
Moving forward a little bit, we already kind of alluded to this earlier. Mike Evans is facing a 1-game suspension. The Buccaneers added veteran wide receiver Cole Beasley, so potentially another crafty slot guy, playing limited snaps on the outside, kind of giving Tom Brady another sure-handed target. He went unsigned. I probably due to his age, 32 years old, 33 years old. So, but I think he's going to be heavily used. Is a late round stash pick? Maybe no, because Mike Evans is only going to be going 1 game. We really are still learning the prognosis for Chris Godwin and his high ankles and his hamstring issues. So we're really just trying to buy time. I would not want anybody to think that Cole Beasley would be unusable in a deeper league, but in a 10-team PPR 12-team league, I think you could possibly find better waiver wire options than someone who's probably, if he is going to be relevant, only relevant for maybe a week, maybe two, at the most. So I don't think you should, especially if you're in a fab league. Fab league, that means you bid on players. I don't really feel that he should be worth a $1 bid, $3 bid. I don't think you should. If you bid on him, you bid $0, and hopefully he just falls in your laps. If you're in the waiver league, I wouldn't even worry about it until Saturday, unless you are in dire need of a body on your wide receivers, because as we know, Michael Pittman's out right now. His availability for next week is pretty much in question. So Jalen Waddle is dealing with, or Jerry Jeudy is dealing with a rib injury. He's day to day. We don't know his prognosis for the next game. So there's a lot of question marks in wide receivers. So Cole Beasley may not be the flashiest guy. I'm kind of on the fence with this, playing devil's advocate to myself. What do you think?
I agree with you. I like the signing. I do. And before I get further into it, Mike Evans is looking to appeal that 1-game suspension. Don't know where it's going to go. Personally, I think there should have been more suspensions from that whole debacle to begin with. But I digress. So with Cole Beasley, I do like the signing, and I agree with you. If you're absolutely needing a body for a wide receiver, because you alluded to it, Jerry Jeudy dealing with a rib injury, Michael Pittman's out right now. I think Gabe Davis is still day-to-day with his ankle injury. So
Yes.
it's one of those, if you absolutely need someone, I mean, you might as well take Cole Beasley and just, take a shot.
Take a shot, especially in the deeper league.
I'm not saying he's going to be your best option, but he's going to be one of at this point. So it'll be interesting to see where, what happens with Tampa Bay's organization as a whole as far as the receiving core, because, they have a lot of names that are, are recognizable names. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. One that hasn't really fulfilled expectations is Russell Gage so far, but he might, do something this week. So we'll wait and see.
But he's also dealing with an injury, so he may not be.
You're right.
So it's just all about getting healthy. They're going through the injury bug too, so it's kind of ravaging the league, and we'll talk about.
It's really strange how many injuries there are just in the second week.
Yes, and how they're hitting some teams so hard. And moving forward, we're going to go down to Dallas. Dak Prescott will have his stitches removed this week. Mike McCarthy told reporters Monday. Michael Gallup, who's dealing with the knee injury, will need a full week's worth of practice before determining his availability. So he's got to play a whole week before we can talk about him playing on Monday, basically. So he's possibly most likely going to be on the snap count coming from major surgery, trying to come back this year. Dalton Schultz, knee injury, does not know his availability. Won't know his availability until closer to game day, but the team feels good based on the scan. So he had a tweak of his knee. Prognosis seems to be in the positive. No significant structural damage. So it's just all about rest and trying to get that knee rehabilitated. I'm stumbling with words today, so I'm just going to.
You're good, man. You're good.
But yes, so these how did you like Rush Sunday? Do you think he was a good fill-in?
Shocked the heck out of me. I did not expect him to perform the way that he did. I didn't expect Dallas to perform the way that they did, as a whole. But Cooper Rush, like the two starts that he's had, he's come up. He's come up big. Last year he filled in for Dak against Minnesota, pulled out a victory, and then he filled in for Dak this past week, also a victory. So I don't know, man. Like I like his play style. He's definitely a gunslinger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, I'm not saying to start him over Dak. I'm not saying go out and pick him up. I'm not saying any of that. But in my mind, if I'm Jerry Jones or Mike McCarthy or whatever, I might be a little bit more inclined to let Dak rest a little bit, like get 100%
Yes.
before he gets back on that field. Because with a broken thumb, you're talking that's what's holding the ball. Really support it. If your thumb's not fully healed, you're not going to have a full grip on that ball, or not your best grip anyway.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's where I stand with Cooper Rush. I mean, let him start. I mean, let Dak rest a little bit.
I tell you what, if he puts in another week like he did this past week, I will put him on my potential streamer list at quarterback. All right. Moving forward, we already talked about Jerry Jeudy, his considered day to day as he deals with a chest sternum injury. Jeudy did not return from his first quarter exit during Sunday's win over Houston. All right. Last little bit of news and notes. I want to talk about something that kind of caught my eye was Tennessee Titans. Rookie Malik Willis was inserted at quarterback in the third quarter with Tennessee trailing 41-17. That was a demolishing loss. That is that game is the game that hurts men's pride right there. And there's flashes. There's flashes of athleticism. There were a lot of pluses and a lot of minuses when it comes to his overall gameplay as a fill-in. But you could see his raw running ability on full display.
Oh yeah,
and you can also see that open field hit he took, not going for a slot. I bet you he'll learn from that one as well. But that was just something that caught my eye. I know Ryan Tannehill's not the shiniest quarterback options in not so deep leagues or in non 2 QB leagues to be exact. But do you feel if Malik Willis takes the reins that Malik Willis will be considered as a QB2 or maybe a flex consideration? Because his ability to run the football is going to give him a decent floor in my belief. But I don't feel like he cracks the top 30 in wide receiver and quarterback potential unless he can do a little bit more with his arm. But he has a very decent floor with his ability to run the football.
I was going to say I don't think this year, but I definitely see the potential. I forget what his score was exactly, or how many points he got exactly. I know it wasn't like anything eye-opening, but I mean, you guys have to remember that he was playing a Buffalo defense that has been hot the first 2 games of the season. So I fully expect Malik Willis to start at some point this season. I don't see it starting within the next I don't know. I would almost say maybe he starts in week 4 at this point because Tannehill, he's on a downward spiral right now. And we talked about it, leading up to this season, how, Tannehill, he probably has a lot of head games going on right now within himself because, Tennessee have essentially drafted his replacement.
Basically,
and
he did not.
Yeah.
I take it that he didn't feel too hot about that.
Definitely not. And it'll be interesting, the next couple of weeks to see what direction Mike Vrabel goes in. it's one of those. Do I continue to start Tannehill and kind of go like basically make it to where the season's lost, or do I take a shot and go with Malik Willis? And you could create a lot of RPO situations that way, because then you have Derrick Henry, who could take the ball and run through defenders and do whatever he needs to do. Granted, he's off to a slow start, but again, it's week 2.
Yes.
Or Malik keeps it for himself and then runs the other side of the field and gets a lot of yards that way. Like with Malik Willis, I do see a lot of Jalen Hurts type of player, which I don't know if you saw. I don't know if you saw last night's game against Minnesota, but Jalen Hurts did a lot of good things there as well, and I see that type of play style coming from Malik Willis. So we'll wait and see. I'm excited to see what happens with Tennessee, going forward.
For what he did as a fill-in, he had 6 passer yards, 16 rusher yards for negative 0.2 PPR points. So, but he's also not going to face as stout a defense as he did this week. That defense, for the first all intents purposes, looks like the best defense in the league right now.
Yeah,
as far as the 3 levels of defense that they play, and over the next 3 games, they have the 14th easiest opponents in the NFL. So, which would be Indiana, Washington, and a bye. So the next 3 games is Las Vegas, Indiana, Indianapolis, and Washington, which is all intents and purposes. They all have their flaws. So it's not unforeseeable that if he were to be plugged in, let's say after the Las Vegas game, if Tannehill continues to struggle, he has 2 prime opponents that he may just be able to run all over, potentially. So, but that's all I want to talk about on that. It was just something that really caught my eye when I was going over and flipping through channels to see him in the third quarter, and it just was something good to see. All right, we're going to move on to our next segment and try to kind of speed this up a little bit. We are in Jock or Joke. Okay. We've kind of split this up and divvied it out a little bit. I'm going to – wrong paper. I'm going to take the first segment this week if I can find – oh, there we go. Notes. All right. Everything's digital, but I still write everything down. Don't ask me why.
Same here.
All right. But, okay, I'm going to start with my jocks of the week. I kind of got to split a little bit. I'm going to start with the one who over everything that happened last week was the highlight in my mind. Tua Tagovailoa. He turned himself really into a stud on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And his first half, second half splits were crazy. The fourth quarter, he was uber efficient. He was I don't have that stat on me. But anyway, we're gonna digress. I digress. For the game, he was 36 of 50 with a 69.7% completion rating, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 469 yards with a passer rating of 124.1. 2 for 2 in the first half, and in the fourth quarter threw 4 touchdowns. The defenses just didn't seem to play. Now, let me give you this little tidbit right now. In standard, which means non PPR, he was QB2. Okay. Now in PPR, he is still QB2 behind Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson had 119 rushing yards and a touchdown. So
it's hard to beat that.
It's hard to beat that. It's hard to beat ground production associated with pass production. But we're going to talk about Lamar Jackson a little bit as well. But I also want to talk about this wide receiver tandem, the 1 and 2 punch that they have in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Week 1, Tyreek Hill was ranked wide receiver 17. Week 2, he was wide receiver 2. Week 1, Jalen Waddle was wide receiver 19. Week 2, he was wide receiver 3. They both, Waddle and Hill, combined for 33 total targets. The first wide receiver pair to have 10 catches and 150 plus yards and a touchdown in NFL history. The first 2 to ever do it. So that
I didn't realize that.
Yes. Okay, let me break down their stats real quick. They're right next to one another. All right, we'll start with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill had 11 receptions, 13 targets, 190 yards, 17.3 yards per reception, 60-yard reception was his long, 2 touchdowns. And he's 100% rostered. Jalen Waddle, 11 receptions on 19 targets, 171 yards, 15.5 yards per reception, yards per reception. 59 was his longest pass reception catch, 2 touchdowns for a total of 40.1 fantasy points.
That's just, like the crazy stat to me is that's the first time in NFL history. Because when I think of when I think great wide receiver tandems, I thought for sure, Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne would have accomplished that. Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce, Randy Moss and Chris Carter.
Sorry, I said that wrong. Teammates to have 150 plus receiving yards, 10 plus receptions, and 2 touchdowns in the same game. NFL history. Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill.
Wow.
So that has never the 2 touchdowns. They both had 2 touchdowns. So they're both
still though an amazing stat.
Yes, that is a very amazing stat for a team that really underwhelmed a little last week to come back and to amass that much. And we're just going to talk about another wide receiver that kind of stood out was Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Okay. He is another key piece that just continues to build off the second half of last year. He is wide receiver 4 with 9 receptions on 12 targets for 116 yards, 12.9 yards per reception, 49-yard catch was his long, 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 rushing attempts for 68 yards. They gave him 39.4 PPR points. He is currently now rostered in 96.5 of the leagues. But that is a big jump also from last week. Wow. He was number 11. He was number 11 last week, but he was 8 for 12 receptions, 8 receptions on 12 targets for 64 yards and a touchdown. Touchdown kind of saved him last week, but that is a big jump. He's another wide receiver that has slowly just moved himself from my bench and just can't seem to ever make it back there because no matter how tough the defense seems to be, he's been good. The Detroit Lions currently are the highest scoring football team in the league. They scored 35 points week 1. They scored 36 points this week. It's mind-boggling how these teams that just seem to just come out of nowhere. I'm not saying they're going to break the doors down.
Before we go any further, did you ever think that at any point in your life you would say those words that Detroit Lions are the highest scoring team in the NFL?
No.
Same
Never
here.
in a million years. But it just seems like their target hog is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I never thought that he would continue to have that role based on where their offense seems to be, what kind of place they seem to be. They're the better version, I would say, of my Atlanta Falcons. They're the better version. There's, even though they can't seem to keep all those cogs going and rolling, they still find ways to limit turnovers, cause turnovers, because the score was 36-27. The game was not nearly as close as that score dictates. They were up 22-0 at half. So they're very usable parts. Their DST is starting. They give up too many points for me, but they do produce sacks. They do produce tackles, and it looked like they are also adept at getting interceptions, or at least getting to the ball. So if these things can move in correlation with one another, they could be in line to be a bye-week streamer, or if the defense begins to gel, they could possibly be a top 15 defense. It's not out of the realm of belief. There's a lot of issues, but there's a lot of talent there that wasn't there last year. And the offense in particular has its issues, but I would say on this offense, the starting players would be Brown, DeAndre Swift, and flex consideration for Jamal for Williams. He's got flex consideration because he is weirdly involved in both the passing and running. Some way he continues to get snaps. How effective is on him, but he's showing that he's being able to use those targets and the touches to really boost his flex availability. In a 0 RB, he's a pretty low turnover, but I mean, he's very low, but he's RB2 in deeper leagues for me. All right. I think I could end there. I just want to give you this stat of the day. In PPR and non-PPR, Lamar Jackson was QB1. He was 21 of 29 for 318 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 118 yards rushing and a touchdown. Broke off a beautiful 79-yard run. So for all the doubters that felt like dropping him or putting him on the bench, after this week, you need to take a real evaluation and let yourself know that he is still a very high caliber wide receiver. He's still a QB5. Obviously, he has QB1 potential based on his floor of being able to both pass and effectively run. And he's being able to use Rashad Bateman and now become effective. So the offense is starting to come together. So you can't get away from him. And this is my Bugman stat of the day. Lamar Jackson versus the Blitz. He was 9 for 11. He was 9 for 11, 119 yards and a touchdown. That's how effective he was versus the Blitz. So if they weren't putting him on his back, he was almost assuredly making something happen with the football, either with his arm or with his legs. So those are my jocks of the week, and I'm gonna pass it over to Matt.
So my jokes of the week, before I get into it, we're going to hop back to the Lions just for a second, just this quick bit.
Why you have to do that?
No. It's good. It's good. You know, you were talking about the players and everything, and, you know, I want to talk about the coach, Dan Campbell. You know, listen, he's a well-liked coach. He's a player's coach. I'm happy to see him, you know, actually do some good things with Detroit. Granted, you know, they're a division rival. You know, there are times where I do hate the Lions, but he's doing some amazing things there. I'm excited to see where they go from here on out. So, my jokes of the week. First one for quarterback I'm gonna go with Russell Wilson. So slow start for Russell Wilson since he signed his extension. I'm thinking he's going to have another tough game against the 49ers this upcoming week. He's projected this past week. He was projected for 20.1 points. He only got 11 points. So we lost Jay for a minute. I think he'll come back soon. So I'll just go ahead and keep on going for you guys. So, as I said before, projected for 20.1 points. He only scored 11 points in full PPR leagues. 219 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception for 3 yards. I think it's a little too early to say this is going to be a bust year for Russell Wilson, but he's not really impressing me personally. And I think with him going against the San Francisco defense, that's only allowing 7 points, this past week in week 2. They have 3 interceptions for the year, a fumble recovery, and 2 sacks. They had the 2 interceptions against Seattle in week 2. So, I think that San Francisco will still have a lot of pressure on San Francisco. Hey, there's Jay. He's back. So.
Sorry, guys.
No, you're good. I mean, I've had internet issues before. It's only a matter of time for someone else did. So, but my first joke of the week, Russell Wilson. He's projected to put up 17.8 points this coming week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not convinced that he'll get that. So,
especially if he doesn't have Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, no Jerry Jeudy. Javonte Williams can only do so much. I'm not sold on Ken Hamlin, so we'll see. We'll see what Russell Wilson does this week. My second joke of the week, which this one hurts me a little bit. Dalvin Cook.
Oh,
it hurts me a little bit. He was projected 18 points, only got 7.6. In full PPR this week. Granted, Philadelphia had Minnesota's number and just dominated that game.
Yeah,
they did.
It seemed, not to cut you off, but it seemed as if the two teams that were winning should have been the teams playing on Monday Night Football, and the 2 teams that were losing should have been the other teams that played each other on Monday Night Football. It would have been a much better game.
Much better. Oh, yeah. But, not all – I could take the loss a little bit. I did have Jalen Hurts in my one league, and that got me the victory. So I'll take the loss with a grain of salt. So
yeah.
But I digress. So go over Dalvin's stats real quick. He had 6 attempts for 17 yards, 6 targets, 4 receptions for 19 yards, 0 TDs. The past couple weeks, Cook hasn't started the way that he usually does. It sucks, but, it's still early in the season. There's a lot of hype around Justin Jefferson right now. Kirk Cousins, he's going to do Kirk Cousins things. So fear not, Vikings fans, including myself in that discussion. Maybe he'll bounce back with Detroit. Detroit is giving up, Jay talked about it. They are giving up a lot of points. Through 2 games, they've given up 59 points total. I look for Minnesota's defense. I look for the Minnesota-Detroit game to be a high-scoring game in general. So if you're a Minnesota or Detroit owner or player owner, I would fully consider starting some of those guys, this upcoming week.
Definitely Amon-Ra St. Brown. Definitely DeAndre Swift. Dalvin Cook is a lock. Justin Jefferson is a lock. I would still consider Adam Thielen as a flex. He still has limited involvement in the offense, but in crunch time, his number does seem to get called.
Yeah, don't get me started on that because there were plenty of times where I watched that game last night and I'm just I see Thielen run across the field open. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Just toss him the ball. Toss him the ball. Granted,
give it up. Just give it up.
Granted, I have Thielen in a couple of my leagues as well, so that's why I was like, give him the damn ball.
There you go.
I'll make my last two jokes real quick. My joke for wide receiver was DJ Shark. He was projected 9.89 points. Goose egg.
Goose.
He had nothing. He had 4 targets. That was about it. Week 1, he did go over his projection with 4 receptions and 52 yards. Just want to point that out in a touchdown. Week 2, going against a Washington defense that kept him in check. So, but as I just talked about, Detroit is playing Minnesota, so maybe he can bounce back this coming week. Sound like a broken record here. Expect a high-scoring game. We'll see, but I wouldn't say to cut off DJ Shark just yet. He is projected 10.08 points this upcoming week. And then my last one, Jay, I expect you to give me some guff about this one. Kyle Pitts is my joke of the week. I'm sorry, bud. So both weeks 1 and 2 have been at least consistent. I was going to say consistent.
Consistently bad.
So both games this year, he's gotten 2 targets and 19 yards. So 4 receptions, 38 yards total for the year. Now, I'm not saying anything bad. I expect him and Drake London to kind of have somewhat of a bigger game this coming week against Seattle defense. They just lost Jamal Adams to a quad tear. So I think it's no doubt that's going to hurt Seattle's secondary. But I think it hurts that defense as a whole because he is the voice of that defense, in my opinion.
He's the only good part of that defense, huh?
Yeah. So I expect a bounce-back week for Kyle Pitts. I expect a good week for Drake London.
Are you moving him?
Let's just make it happen.
Are you moving him down in your rankings any? Because I've actually, looking at the matchup, I've actually moved him up in my rankings from I had him down to tight end 6 after week 1. I'm moving him back up to 3. I think he's going to have a really good week. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. It's scheme. I can tell in the way when they pick their plays, when they run their plays, Mariota's not adjusting the down and distance and the difficulty in certain areas because I know process would have told him get to the open guy. So Olamide Zaccheaus Brian Edwards was the open guy, but he's about 5 inches shorter than your next tallest target. And in a red zone position, goal to go, I would not throw the ball to a 5'10" wide receiver. You have 2 twin towers. It's just scheme. You have to understand down and distance, goal to go. You got to get it to your biggest targets, the ones with the best hands. I don't understand his inavailability as in target share because I can understand Drake London getting the targets being his ability to seemingly move on clouds around the middle of the field and even his explosive ability to get away from defenders. But you have that same ability in a bigger frame to use and expose those high points, crossing routes. You played 2 teams that run heavy zone schemes, not much man-to-man. Yeah, they kind of overshadowed the tight end in the first game. Yes, they kind of put one over the top. But once you know that, you change your scheme. It's a transition. I know I'm talking like a armchair head coach, but it's simple. It sounds so simple to just modify your playbook, modify your go routes, modify the guys you're throwing the ball to. I don't get it. I don't get. I understand that it's new. I understand that things are just people have to learn how to play with one another.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the off season for if not to groom you into what's really going on? What was this practicing with a whole another football team? What is that supposed to give you? The ability to gel, learn what's good, learn your playbook, add the players.
Camaraderie.
Yeah, camaraderie. You have to got to kind of work together, and it's got to go better. I think it's going to be a bounce back week. We're going to start to see them extend those short plays because you saw the potential when we were down and we got the spark. You seen the potential of what we can do when we have that spark, but we also seen our number one problem: the speed of our quarterback, his ability to work mental clock in his head, his ability to break down the field. We can see why some of the reasons why he was taken off the field for the likes of Ryan Tannehill. Not to take away from Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill is a good quarterback, but he's not elite. So he's got to be able to speed that mental clock up in his head. I'm sorry to get on my soap can real quick. Soap bottle and soapbox. Anyway.
No, you're good. You're good because, I think about Marcus Mariota too, and it's unfortunate. And I thought about it the other day. I was just like, Mariota isn't a bad quarterback. Were the expectations a little too?
18 this week, so he was in the top 10. I mean, the top 20. Yeah. So he's not that bad.
Were the expectations a little high when he came out of college? Yeah, yes. I'll say that. I think he went number one overall. I don't think he should have gone number one overall. No. Not to mention he went to a Tennessee team, which at the time didn't really have any offensive weapons.
No.
So, by the time that they did get the likes of Derrick Henry, or I believe his last year in Tennessee, that's when they got A.J. Brown, they weren't developed yet. At that point for Marcus Mariota, it's like, okay, let's just see what I can do. I'm trying to fight for a job right now. So I think him spending the past 2 years with the Raiders and sitting behind Derek Carr really helped him out a lot. It's just now he's trying to get back into rhythm, and I think we'll see that a lot this coming week against Seattle. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys do against that team this week.
Yes, and we'll move on forward, picking up our pace a little bit. In a few words, give me your sleeper at quarterback.
My sleeper at quarterback this week is Jalen Hurts, going up against a Washington defense that's giving up 28 points per game. He did a lot of things last night against Minnesota. Granted, Minnesota's defense isn't the greatest, but guess what? Neither is Washington's.
There you go.
And, with Washington giving up those 28 points per game, that's against quarterbacks who aren't even considered elite. So I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is elite, but he's better than the quarterbacks that put up that type of production. So I see Jalen Hurts going off this week. I also want to point out that Washington is allowing 400 plus yards per game. Not a lot of pressure coming from the front seven, as they only have 5 sacks in the first 2 contests. I look for Jalen Hurts to go off this coming week.
Okay, then.
And then for my sleeper at running back, touch on this, and I'll let you get to wide receivers and tight ends. I look for Devin Singletary to have somewhat of a bigger week or a bigger role this coming week. Buffalo's going against Miami, and historically, the past couple of years, Buffalo has not done really the greatest. Josh Allen hasn't had the greatest of games in Miami. So I look for, him to be a part of the game a little bit more, whether it's through rushing, whether it's through check down passes, screens, whatever. I see Singletary getting a lot of production this week. So those are my two sleepers for week 3. Jay, where do you stand on your sleepers for wide receiver and tight end?
All right. First and foremost, we're going to go with my boy Garrett Wilson. He was wide receiver 6 this week. He is the wide receiver of the New York Jets. He was a part of that comeback win that helped them seal the deal. Okay. Let's see. He caught 8 passes on 14 targets for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns in New York's 31-30 comeback victory. It was pretty much a breakout for him. He left injured at one point and came back and helped them seal the deal with a game-winning touchdown. I really see his ability to move with that 4.38 40-yard dash speed that he has. You get to see that speed in real life and in real time. His game speed matches the profile, and he moved so seamlessly. He outshined Elijah Moore by a significant margin in my mind. I see more of an upside with him with Joe Flacco because Joe Flacco's become more. They have become more keen. They're gelling a little bit more as an offense, and he's going to sling it. And if you're there to get it, Garrett Wilson's catch radius is awesome. Right now in Yahoo, he is only 24% rostered. So that is definitely a big sleeper that moving forward, I think that it could be positive for him. And if we look forward, if I can get a beat on.
I was going to say, let me see if he's available in my league real quick.
And he's rostered in 70% of ESPN leagues. As of right now, he has played 2 games, grabbed 12 receptions on 22 targets for 154 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that's pretty darn good. That's a pretty good start, and I really feel that he's on the move. His ADP is he's slow. He's surely. My bet is that he outdoes his ADP. I really believe that he has the ability to outdo his ADP. Playing at the way he's playing, he's already got 2 touchdowns. So at this pace, he's on pace to score 17 touchdowns this year. I'll take that. I know there's going to be an adjustment and a plateau phase, but I think his year 1 has a lot of potential. Moving on, I'm going to be kind of short on this because I've kind of talked about him before. We're going to go with Pat Freiermuth. He's consistently nabbing targets. Over the first 2 games of this season, he's had 9 receptions on 17 targets for 97 yards, 10.8 yards per target with a touchdown. I really feel like with Mitch Trubisky, he needs a go-to guy, someone to toss it off to when things get a little bit too heated in the pocket for him. He suffers from one-sidedness as a quarterback, in my opinion. Non-rosterable in most instances, but Pat Freiermuth is very usable because he's getting the volume. You can see the volume for a tight end. I know this shouldn't keep going, but getting 17 targets over the first 2 games and grabbing 9 of them, he's going to be in a position to benefit his team. I think if they can build a little bit more with their wide receivers, I believe DeAndre Johnson is the only wide receiver I really would touch right now. But their second option is obviously Pat Freiermuth. And you got to believe that with this volume, they're going to get him some red zone targets once they get into the parts of the schedule to play with more evenly matched teams. So Pat Freiermuth is definitely on my sleepers list. And if we look at, he's pretty rostered in most leagues, 88 in ESPN and 89 in Yahoo. But if we want to throw one more out there, I would have to go with Hayden Hurst. All right. In 2 games, he's had 10 receptions on 15 targets for 70 yards, but no touchdowns. He's another guy who has an ability in offense playing next week against New York Jets, which aren't very good against the tight end. He has an opportunity to see a large target share, obviously, to throwing the ball to him and in his direction. And Joe Burrow, he's got to have that out guy. The target share is just what drives me to put him as a sleeper. Someone to possibly put in a bye week or spot start. And if you're having injuries to George Kittle or your tight end, he's a good start. All right. And that is it for our sleepers. All right. Now it's time.
Let's get to lightning round.
Yes. What you got for me today, Smalls?
So originally I had 3, but as I'm sitting here, I thought of a 4th question. So we're gonna do 4 questions, 1 minute apiece. I'm gonna ask you the question that just came to my mind. All right.
Okay.
So the Indianapolis Colts are not looking too hot right now. Mm-hmm. They're 0-2. They got shut out by Jacksonville, the other day. Now, if you're Jim Irsay, how long do you give it before you let Frank Reich go?
A lot of pressure is on him. Obviously, having the pieces that he has, but I feel like he has maybe six games before they really have to try to make a decision on whether they want to tank and look for a quarterback of the future. Because I know Matt Ryan's is only short term; he's a stopgap. They've had a couple stopgaps over the last couple of years. Nobody has really stuck. So I believe if they go 0-6 or 1-5, I believe that they will fire their head coach and look to trying to build through the draft. It's a great draft class for quarterbacks this year.
It is. Well, okay, what about 2-4? Would you consider letting him go then, or would you just write it out at that point?
I think I would probably ride it out until possibly their bye week.
And then go from there. That makes sense.
Let me look and see when their bye week is. Give you an accurate answer. Ooh, they have a late bye week. Never mind. I would say 6 games. I would stick with 6 games. If they're 2-4, they might ship it in, depending on the key pieces. But I know definitely if they go 1-5, 0-6, he's done.
All right, question number 2 now. With the injury to Trey Lance, and provided that San Francisco doesn't lose any more players, and they get some of their players back, Elijah Mitchell, he's still 7 weeks out at this point. Bring in George Kittle. Do you think Jimmy G can lead the 49ers into the playoffs? And if so, how far can they go?
Well, that's a very good question. Jimmy Garoppolo. Okay. If I think with the pieces that they have, I think they can make a very deep run in the playoffs this year. If we just take a look at, because they weren't that bad of a team last year with Jimmy Garoppolo at the helm last year, and he was a very serviceable quarterback. I just believe the pace of other teams' defenses got a little bit ahead of them, but I really feel like they can make a deep run. It all really depends on how well the team buys into playing as a team, preferably Jimmy G burying the hatchet, so to speak, with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, and really just selling into the ability to be a better team. So I really feel like they have the potential to still go through a deep run because their quarterback is not horrible.
Okay.
And their defense is
I like
awesome.
it. Yeah. So, question number 3. So, it's no secret Tua went off in week 2, leading Miami late in the game to a major comeback. Obviously, I don't think you expect him to do the same thing next week against Buffalo. I know I don't. But do you think that he had, was it a fluke or was it legit?
I believe it was situational. We really got a good look at the Ravens' defense or lack thereof in the secondary, and we also get to see how high powered this Miami offense could be because I think it might have been a little bit of the case of Baltimore just really not understanding the totality of what they have right now in Miami, and it was a wake up call to the NFL. The Buffalo Bills are averaging 18 points. Their DST is averaging 18 points a game right now. So their defense is very stout. Their secondary is very stout. They're good at all 3 levels. So it's going to be a lot more difficult. But I also believe that there's opportunity for them to split the middle of their field with 2 of the fastest wide receivers in the game. I do feel like they need to get Chase Edmonds more involved in the offense, particularly on passing downs. But I really feel like they have the ability to just shock the world. I'm picking them to win against the Bills by 3.
Ooh. There's your hot take of the week. I love it. I like it a lot. So, last question, then we'll wrap things up here. So, a lot of 0-2 teams, right now.
Mm-hmm.
One of those teams is last year's Super Bowl runner-up, Cincinnati Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
In normal circumstances, but teams tend to find that panic button, hit it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is this: should they be hitting that panic button with a little more urgency since they were in the Super Bowl last year, or should they just kind of like let it ride out, say, "Hey, it's okay," because they do have a lot of offensive weapons.
Mm-hmm. Well, on paper, their offensive line was supposed to be dramatically improved, but I think that their offensive line is worse than the sum of their parts because on paper they were supposed to be so much better than what they are, but it's just abysmal. I think they need to hit the panic button hard and fast because as it stands right now, since the playoff berth got extended, there has not been a single team that started 0-2 to make the playoffs. Since the playoffs has expanded, there's not been one 0-2 team to make it to the playoffs. So if you want to change the curve, I really feel like they need to start with changing the scheme to help cover up the inefficiency of their offensive line because that is where the problem lies. Joe Burrow can't make plays if he's laying on his back, and he's got to stop throwing interceptions.
Absolutely.
He can do this if he has more time.
I was going to say he can't be throwing that many interceptions, especially with you and I both talked about the 3-headed monster that they have in their receiving core with Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins.
Yeah, there you go. And
Not
then you throw in Joe Mixon.
Exactly. Who's arguably a really good receiving back. So
3-down back. That's crazy. And then in the emergence of Hayden Hurst giving them options through the middle, all they really need is that
offensive line.
The offensive line just start playing average football. If the offensive line could be average, they would have at least one win right now. But
who knows? I mean, they get their chance, this coming week. We'll see. In fact, before we sign off, let me see who they're playing this week. They're going up against the Jets, so I mean they have a chance. So
Yeah, they have a chance. That's a
it'll
bottom
be
five
interesting.
if I've ever seen one.
It's the NFL. Everyone has a chance.
Yeah, any given
All
Sunday.
right, I think that about wraps it up for this week of Armchair GMs. Jay, you have anything else?
Oh yeah. For just one thing. Anyone who's seeing this podcast, and if you like what you see, like, rate, and subscribe. Tell a friend. Bring more people into the fold. We are rapidly trying to improve the content that we provide, and we just want you to like, rate, and subscribe. That's all we want you to do, and that's it for me. Go Braves! We're in a heated battle for our division title, another division title with the Mets. We're playing the Phillies tonight. I'm not watching the game right now. I'm recording it, and hopefully we come out with a W and seal this series up so we can be one step closer to back-to-back championships. Back-to-back. That's all we want. Fantasy football championships and back-to-back real-life championships. That's all we want.
I was going to say, best of luck to your Braves. My Cubs are, well,
Ooh.
we won't get into it. That's for something else.
Oh. All right. I'll let you sign us off, bud.
All right, man. Well, if you don't have anything, I'm Matt. He's Bugman Jay. Y'all have a good week, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Peace out.